CityCast from Explocity.
Khalil Gibran on children and marriage. And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which the children are as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable.
The most enduring vision of the side B of a comedian's personality, we're often told, is the sad mask. Tales of unhappy childhood, some trauma lurking beneath that jovial exterior. We've all heard the stories. But my guest today, actor-comedian Rubi Chakravarti, wants to have nothing to do with the sad sack business. Ruby's funny side seems to have emerged from a happy place. Either that, or she took what she had and turned it into a happy place. When we, Explocity, first encountered Ruby, she was acting in a play in Bangalore. It was her first performance. Our review of the play, written by jazz singer, then Explocity features editor Radha Thomas, could have been reduced to its most striking, albeit cliched headline, "A Star is Born." This was in the late 90s, and it was the first time anyone had written about Ruby. So we happily take the blame for unleashing Ruby on the world. Since then, Ruby's career has taken her across India and overseas in performances as an actor, both screen and stage, a stand-up comedian, a columnist, and much more, boiling up to be named in 2014 by the BBC as one of 100 women to have made a difference. It's 2022 now, and Rubi Chakravarti is still wife, mother, and a very busy entertainer. Her success made sweeter by the fact that she had decided to become famous only after she had turned 40. And now, it is my pleasure to present someone who describes herself as a woman with many words in her mouth. Rubi Chakravarti, welcome to the Literary City.
Hey, thank you so much. I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to be on this show.
The thrill is all mine, Ruby. I'm going to plunge right in with something I said in my monologue. They say that humor comes from a place of regret and resentment. Does that fairly describe comedians?
I don't know. Sometimes I did gigs for visiting stand-up comedians, and I would do a opening gig for them. And backstage, they were very morose and dark and resentful. And I don't know. I just keep looking at them and saying, "Oh my God, am I like that?" No, I'm not.
That must have been a downer for someone like you, but you're more than a stand-up, aren't you?
Because I don't suppose stand-up comedy is my gig in life. It is a part of my repertoire. It's a part of what I do.
Were you always a happy person? Does your humor come from happiness?
Well, I do think I'm a happy person. I'd like to believe I'm a happy person. I don't like to believe I'm morose, but it's a choice I make. I get up every morning and I say, I choose to be happy. So I don't think anybody really comes from that la happy place, because I don't know what happy mushrooms are eating.
So were you always the funny girl?
So as I grew up, I learned to use humor to be more accepted. And of course, self-effacing humor is, always sort of appeals to everybody's latent sense of being mean.
That's an angle.
So, of course, being a funny girl was also a very big part of being accepted. I look different.
Some comedians I know escaped from rigorous conservative backgrounds. Some others came from liberal places. To which do you belong?
I had parents who were rebels. So my mother was a Pathan and my father was a Bengali Brahmin. So I didn't belong to anything.
That seems like a fairly interesting combination.
Very interesting. They got married in 1947 and they were in England and there was a fatwa out on my mother's head. But so we came to India and we didn't have any, uncles and aunts and anybody like that growing up. So, and I had much older siblings, much older siblings, 10, 15 years older than me. So I had to let my voice be known and also be accepted with my peers.
How did the humor grow and manifest itself in you? Were you naturally funny?
I mean, I was funny. I think it was more physical humor in the past when I was younger. But then,
How do you mean physical? You mean like slapstick?
you know what I mean? Like, something like that, or imitating a teacher. But then later on, it started getting more subtle. And as my legs would not move as fast, there was a problem with that. My body didn't obey what my brain was saying.
Oh no, that sounds painful.
No, jokes apart. But I think it's a honed skill, Ramji. Definitely a honed skill. I didn't come out humorous from my mother's stomach, for sure. I did really use humor to further my cause. It sounds very
mercenary.
But who isn't? I'm just truthful.
As a comedic writer, it must pain you to see material freely passed around and used. Plagiarism is rife in your industry, isn't it?
I agree, because to keep an audience invested in you, or their attention in you, you have to have your segues correct, you have to have reams of material, you have to jump from topic to topic and make your segues, like a big story, like you're telling a story. I'm very good at that. So it's a lot of hard work. And then you see somebody doing the same thing. It's like a ready-made thing. And they're doing a terrible version of what you did. You say, go find your own humor. No, it's plagiarism for anything. If you wrote something, Ramji, and you had somebody just write it badly, you wouldn't like it.
Happens more often than I wanted to. But let's talk about you. Do you write your own material? And what do you consider original?
I have a different take on it, okay? I don't think any material is not out there.
Okay.
Or any story is untold. It's the way you tell the story. Any story. It's all been told. Sometimes it's not straight plagiarism. Of course, I abhor that. But it's how you tell your story, Like, for example, many times I call myself horizontally challenged, which is not a totally, a phrase that popped out from the middle of my head. But it's so in connection with what I'm saying. I'm not using that only, but I'm using that for a moot point, or when I talk about plastic surgery and I talk about upright breasts and I say, it doesn't move. Breasts are supposed to dance and sing and laugh and all that. This is just straight, and like even God looks down and says, I didn't make them, So it's just the way you come across, the way you say things. I'm sure people have spoken about, Gestapo breasts before. But
no, wait a minute. Not so fast. What do you mean, Gestapo breasts?
We are walking.
Well, gazpacho breasts by some American lawmakers.
Yeah. Yeah, so see, there's humor in this, and there's humor in everything that you say and do. Is just how you say things.
Material and timing, as they say. So are you good at reading the room?
Half a minute, I know whether I've got the audience by their short and curlies or not.
Well, whether you do or don't, you still have to continue to be funny, correct?
Believe me, humor is a fabulous way of getting out of tough situations. If you act extra smart, you'll get your, what kicked in.
Speaking of tough situations, ever been heckled?
No, thankfully not. Maybe because I'm 5 feet 10 inches tall and 5 feet 9¼ inches broad, and there is a bit of fear.
Oh, stop.
A lot of fear. And then I went to my poor husband and I said, look at him. He used to be so much taller, but now he isn't. And I just leave it in the...
So what does your repertoire include? You don't do political humor, do you?
I stay away from political humor, for example. I just feel they're humorous on their own, They're so stupid, you don't need to make jokes about them.
So true. Well, what about socially incorrect humor?
You know me long. You have to answer that question.
Well, I mustn't speak to that. So let me ask you again. Are you deliberately socially incorrect?
Deliberately not, okay? But many people have many ideas on how I should be.
Really?
So if I'm 5 feet 10 inches tall and 5 feet 9.25 inches broad, I dare not show my cleavage. How dare you show your cleavage? I don't know why. Why can a skinny one do it and I can't? Or like you're not supposed to wear certain clothes or silly things like that. Why should I hide myself under a bag of rice and ruffles, tell me?
I dare say people will want to see a lot more of you. And I also say that confidence is a very attractive thing.
Yes, I suppose it is. And I'm sure I am, because then I have lots of words in my mouth, Ranji.
My favorite of your lines. Okay, let me ask you, what is it like to be a woman with a lot of words in her mouth?
Very scary. Everybody looks at my husband like, poor thing, poor you.
You're kidding, right?
And he says, I swear. They look at him and say,
I don't get it. What do you mean?
Men, I'm not trying not to generalize, have little fragile egos.
We do.
And they are born and they've been brought up, or society tells them, whoever society is, that you're alpha, I understand that alpha bit, if we are living in a cave and you say, me go shoot deer, me get deer. And then you come back with a deer over your arm and I say, my hero, and I cook for you and I give you the biggest piece and then I feed the children and then myself. But if I take the bow and arrow and go out and kick a bigger deer's ass and bring it back and cook it while you're sitting out in the pub with your friends, and then you say, me man, I want my food. There are many nasty gestures I will make to you.
Sounds specific. What did someone say to you? What's the story?
I mean, he looked at me and then he was actually talking to my husband and he looked at me and he said, Yaar, isko zara control kiya kar.
What does that mean? Could you translate?
In Hindi, it means yaar, that means fellow male.
Right.
Why don't you control her?
That's awful.
I got blindsided. I didn't know what to say.
So, what did you say?
Well, again, I turned it into humor. I went up to Imtiaz, I looked at him adoringly, and I shook my non-existent tail at him and said, poof, poof. What is it?
I see what you needed to do, but misogyny isn't funny, Ruby.
There is undertones of so much bigotry, I can't tell you. Men make jokes on women, where it's all right if you take it as in a broad sense of humor, that's what men talk about, women talk about. But it's not equal. Women cannot talk about men as much as men naturally talk about women,
Well, silly and puerile jokes get around a lot more than they should be allowed to.
This damn WhatsApp, which gives everybody the right to, be a little comedian in their own little kitchens. It's irritating, yeah. And let's say plagiarizing for plagiarizing. And they will get published after plagiarizing everything you wrote.
Well, if they're going to plagiarize you, they may as well do it badly. Now, in your writing and your speaking, I noticed that you are always grammatical. Paid attention in school?
I'm taking a pause because I am now falling at your feet and touching your toes.
Why on earth?
Even acknowledging that I'm grammatically correct. They've taken Wren and Martin out of schools. I don't know. I really I had very good teachers. I knew how to construct a sentence, number one. Of course, then the craft of writing becomes even better because the more you write, the better you become at it. You become more and more disciplined in how you write.
Speaking of craft, who was the funniest writer that you've read?
Of course, P.G. Woodhouse.
P.G. Woodhouse, yeah, master of brevity. Is that why you liked him?
P.G. Woodhouse was very much like it was very English humor, and we had a lot of English literature, so we could identify with it. If I didn't read him, I'd be uneducated. I'm glad I read him, but...
Speaking of reading, many comedians have told me that they have to be quick with their wit, and this somehow conflicts with reading long tomes.
Yeah, I think, days of War and Peace and 800 pages of it and all is out. Ebooks are very in. Sorry, I'm not being very literary about it.
As women are fond of saying, it's what you do with it. Okay, so many comedic writers have said that they have a favorite funny sound. What's your go-to sound?
Now, when you ask me a sound that's really funny, a lot of us use it is like "ga,"
What?
It's
Please repeat that.
"ga."
G.
It's,
You mean like an exclamation?
yes, it's like, you don't even have to say anything more than that.
G is your go-to sound, is it?
Oh, yes. Especially when I'm talking about my gynecologist doing an examination and
As in, who put the G in gynecology?
yeah.
Further down that path, does the label feminist comedy appeal to you?
Actually, the word feminist scares me, okay, because I don't know what it means. But when I hear feminist conversation, you are a feminist, I immediately think I have to take out various things that hold my anatomy up and burn them or something.
You mean burn your bra?
But yeah, like I immediately feel I have to burn my bra, and I don't want to. It's a Victoria's Secret and it's expensive.
Well, a good reason not to. Keep going.
Yeah, so I don't know what I'm expected to do.
A New York comedian once told me she hates to write material for a feminist room. What's that, and do you?
I had gone to a big corporate place, a bank, and I work with HR. And so everybody had come from different departments, and they were all women, all beautifully dressed, everything. And they were all putting their point across as what they wanted to deal with. They have the problem areas, they wanted to deal with this, and they wanted me to address it in my seminar, with people. But the moment I quietened down and I listened to, and I started seeing these women and how passive aggressive they were. And I said, oh my God, there's so much testosterone floating around in this room that if I wasn't menopausal, I would have been pregnant, I'm telling you, it was amazing how they were like the worst caricatures of men that you see. So for me, that is not feminism. For me, feminism is equal opportunity, equal pay, So feminism is a word thrown about it like you hate men. I've been told you hate men. I have 2 beautiful children and I'm still with the same man.
Is that your definition of feminism, or did someone accuse you of hating men?
I mean, I was called a feminist who hates men. So I suppose it just goes hand in hand. Yeah.
Well, here's a straight question. Are you a man-hating feminist?
Ramji, I've slobbered all over you because you're such a good-looking man. Come on.
Now I'm blushing.
No, I actually don't hate men. I don't like misogynist men who throw their weight around and somehow feel domination is the key to everything. You know what I mean? Yeah. So as you grow older, you have less time for this BS. Yeah. So it's just that. Yeah.
So do you capture all this angst, I use the word loosely, in your comedy?
I do. Not liked by the men, though. I do a lot of it. And women laugh uproariously because it's like they sort of identify with it,
Yes, it's funny and it's relevant. So tell me, Ruby, have you ever gone on stage and, bombed?
So far, no, touch wood.
And like any experienced performer, I'm sure you're completely terrified before you go up on stage. Am I right?
Every time I step on stage to do a stand-up comedy, I am terrified. I'm terrified. If I could pee on stage, I would do it.
I know the feeling.
Honestly.
What terrifies you?
I'm terrified because you don't know. And like there's some guys who are just waiting in the audience for you to fuck up.
So while there is this vulnerable side to you that I've been happy to unearth that your audiences don't normally see unless they're smart, I'd go back to the stuff that I said right in the beginning in my monologue, that you come from a happy place. The sense of you being a contented and confident person comes right through.
So when you say confidence, you see, that's why it's a dichotomy. Because I choose to be confident. I choose to win. I choose to be alpha. I choose to be happy. It's a very powerful choice to make. And in between all that, there isn't, underneath all that humor, this sad, angst-ridden, Babla Cartlinish type female. No, there isn't. Do I cry? Of course I cry. If I bomb, I'd howl. And I tell them that also. I look very ugly if I howl. But the fact is that I choose to be. And I think the joie de vivre just sort of, my will to succeed translates into the audience, which is also vulnerable.
Yes, it is. And it's wonderful that you chose to share that side of you with us today. In closing, Rubi Chakravarti, it was a delight to have you on my show.
Thank you so much, Ramji.
And next up, that wonderfully popular segment, What's That Word? Stay tuned. And now, to close out the interview, Rubi Chakravarti with another reading from her muse, Khalil Gibran.
You were born together, and together you shall be forevermore. You shall be together when the white wings of death scatter your days. You shall be together even in the silent memory of God. But let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. Fill each other's cup, but drink not from one cup. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each one of you be alone. Even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music. Give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping, for only the hand of life can contain your hearts. And stand together, yet not too near together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow.
And now for that magical segment, What's That Word? And to help me with it is my co-host. As always, I'll let her introduce herself. Go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Pranati, but you can call me P. But that's P with an A, not another E.
P with an A. Do you know another closely related word, a P word that also has an A but no E?
No, I hear the answer, but I have no choice but to listen.
Yeah, peristalsis. Ironically, it causes a P with another E.
Well, it brings great relief to everyone everywhere.
Yes, it certainly does.
Yeah. So I enjoyed your interview with Rubi Chakravarti.
Thanks.
Yeah, she's very funny.
She is.
Yeah. So what was it about her first performance that made Radha Thomas declare her a star?
Well, I was there, and it was the play was going on quite well. It was a play by Poili Sengupta, if I remember it correctly.
Right.
And Ruby was not one of the main characters, but she enters stage left, and everything changes. She's a natural.
Ah.
She has that thing. They have a term for it. What's that?
X Factor?
The X Factor, right. Another day, let's find out why they call it the X Factor.
Yeah, all this nonsense keeps our audiences from Z's, I guess.
Well, I'm duly satisfied with my one allowed dad joke for the segment. So let's go further back up the alphabet and head straight to the one with the P factor. Okay, P with an A, what's the word?
Yeah, you asked Ruby if her idea of physical comedy was slapstick.
Right.
Yeah, so what's the origin of slapstick?
Okay. So first, the meaning. Slapstick is a kind of style of humor where foolish people get into humiliating situations, right?
It's funny because it's like improbably funny situation.
Right.
But why slapstick?
Right. Okay. So slapstick is fairly literal. Nothing subtle about it. All right. Like slapstick. The word actually comes from the sound made by two sticks being slapped together. All right. So back in 16th century Italy, which is where they first had it, they had two paddle sticks. One was shaped like a cricket bat,
right,
and the other was another piece of flat wood that they attached to the paddle, so the cricket bat, with a kind of hinge. And, when you shook it, one stick slapped the other stick and made a crazy sound. So that was called the slapstick sound,
Yeah.
That's how it is. And generally it came to mean, when you heard that sound, it came to mean that somebody was hitting somebody else, like to pretend hit people.
Yeah. Like circus clowns used to beat each other on the bum.
Yes, that is right. It is the universal sound for smacking the bottoms. You're right about that.
Yeah.
Slapstick also has funny connotations like, you know how it is when someone's wearing flip-flops and he's trying to steal your cab, and then he kind of trips and he pitches forward and he's running right, to keep from falling. That whole routine is very, very, very slapstick.
Yeah. So is this all very recent usage?
Not completely recent, no. It originated in 16th century Italy when one of the characters in what the Italians called commedia dell'arte, this character was called Harlequin, or as the Italians called it, Arlecchino.
Ah.
You know, it's this very recognizable character, like a jester kind of a character.
Yeah.
He was a stock character in Renaissance comedy, and he always had a paddle, which was his comedy prop. And it was a slapstick, you know.
Right.
And the Italians call the paddle batacchio.
Yeah, I know that word. It literally means a door knocker.
Exactly, because in the old days, they just had a flat piece of wood on the door to let somebody inside know that someone's at the door.
Yeah, but the question is, who put the butt in batacchio?
This is more slapstick. This whole segment is slapstick. I'd say, who put the batacchio on the butt? Harlequin or Arlecchino, you know, the dude wore that loud diamond pattern costume, you know, you remember that? You've seen that?
Yeah. I like that diamond pattern. Very cool. Like it can pass off in a hip hop video.
Never thought of that. You better call Jay-Z right now.
Yeah, I just might.
The Harlequin or Arlecchino carried it in the Commedia dell'arte comedy, and that comedic form actually became very popular right through Europe, and it went from the 16th centuries right up to the late 1800s, like right down to 1896 and the turn of that century, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, but we don't have to go that far back. I mean, didn't they recently make a movie called Harlequin? I think DC Comics made a movie about.
Oh, the only recent Harleys I know have a Davidson after it. But speaking of print, you know how etymologists always go back to the origins of a word and find out the earliest usages for something? The earliest use that they found was actually, it was the Oxford English Dictionary that quoted the New York Dramatic News in their July 1896 issue with this phrase: "What a relief, truly, from the slapsticks, rough and tumble comedy, couples abounding in the variety ranks." Right? Clearly, the snobbishness against slapstick had already started at that point in time. A few years later, another publication, The Weekly Budget. Do you read The Weekly Budget? Racy publication. Anyway, so they had this phrase: "The special officer in the gallery, armed with a slapstick, the customary weapon in American theater galleries, made himself very officious amongst the small boys." So I guess this guy used to go around with those slapsticks, pretend hitting the small perv. Slapstick was the essence of the funny in early cinema, now wasn't it?
Yeah, Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, Charlie Chaplin, Laurel and Hardy, Buster Keaton.
Yeah, and even more recently, Mr. Bean.
Definitely Mr. Bean. I love Mr. Bean. Slapstick. You know what? I love slapstick.
Yeah, most guys do.
You're absolutely right. Girls don't seem to like it much, do they?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's all that violence or presumed violence. I don't know too many women who find that sort of thing funny.
Well, you have not lived if you cannot appreciate the funny of someone slipping on a banana peel.
Well, that's my cue to peel away then.
All right, bye, P with an A. Till next week then. If there is a word or a phrase that intrigues you, confuses you, or even confounds you, write to us. We'd love to have you on the show to discuss it with you on the air, live. Just go to the podcast description to know how to get in touch with us. Spreading literacy is a great idea. There are so many bright young kids who deserve an education and they simply can't get one, or maybe they can't afford one. There's a school run by the Association for People with Disabilities. They're doing a great job and they could use some more help. The kids at APD join us in thanking all those who have made a donation. And if you would like to make a difference to a child's life, visit apd-india.org and find out how you can teach your child to fish. And that is our show. Thank you so much for listening. By the way, so many people have listened to our show. We're overwhelmed. It's going to make us try harder. All right, see you next week. Bye.